Today's video, we're looking at one of the most neglected and most important parts of creating a good video. We're looking at sound, and more specifically sound effects and sound design to be able to create a real immersive experience. When you neglect sound, your entire quality, your entire production goes down. We process audio and we hear things much faster than we see things. You know, if the image is a little bit shaky or has a little bit more noise in it, or it's a little bit underexposed and a little bit dark, we will get through it. But if our audio has some distracting elements in it, and we're using like the built-in microphone and a camera, or there's an air conditioner going off, or a lot of wind, it's impossible, it's ridiculous, and it's very challenging to get through. So make sure you're paying attention to your visuals as well as your audio. So one thing that I recommend everyone gets is either studio monitors or headphones. For me, in my workflow, I work on a laptop, I work from the road, and I don't like sitting down in one single place, so I really rely on my headphones. They really help to be able to make it so you're able to hear all the details and hear every individual sound and really tweak things properly. These are the Audio-Technica M40X. I highly recommend that you get one with a detachable cable so that if this cable breaks, your headphones are still good. But if you wanted to pick up a pair of headphones or anything from Amazon, it would really help my channel. Take a look in the description down below and you can buy using those links. I get a small commission at no extra cost to you, so that really helps. We get it. Get good headphones. Now move on. This isn't an infomercial. Sorry. Now to start off, one of the big features that I use is EQ. If things just are too deep or too high pitched, sometimes they just need to be adjusted a little bit to be able to fit in with the rest of the scene. It all depends. I kind of just play it by ear and play around with it and mess around with it. You can change some stuff in EQ and just create this immersive experience where it almost feels like there's a barrier all around you and your ears are blocked with all the water. That sound, you can copy that using EQ, and that's something I do all the time. Get to know the equalizer really well, understand what it does, and figure out what sounds best to you and to your ears. Look up a couple other videos and a couple other tutorials on how to be able to use the equalizer properly. The closer you are to the subject, the louder your sound effects should be, or the louder the sound should be. Things like footsteps just getting a little bit quieter as they get further away from the camera, or cutting from a wide shot to a close-up. You need to adjust your audio and the sound based off of your proximity to your subject. It might sound really basic, but it's something I still see neglected all the time. Something else that I do all the time is I change the pan of the audio. It's essentially the same thing when you're panning a camera from like left to right, except in this case, you're panning the audio. So it's going from one of your ears to the other side of the ears. And that can reflect the direction that your subject is moving in. If you have a car that's zooming by, so you want to hear that car go from this part of the frame all the way to that side of the frame. Your audience has two ears, at least I would hope that they have two ears. Go ahead and use that to your advantage and make this surround sound and give your audience this immersive experience just based off of where your subject is framed. Now there's gonna be times where you cannot find the sound effect that you're looking for. Well, I have a couple different tricks and tips to be able to help you find the right sound effect and find the right thing that works well for your scene. So for example, during the coffee commercial, I had this scene where I was shaking the bottle and you just see the liquid in that bottle just sloshing around. And I wanted to have that like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh sound, but I just couldn't find the right tone. And during my time that I was searching all throughout online and going through different YouTube audio libraries, trying to record it myself and not really doing a great job at it, I ended up stumbling upon this sound effect. Now it sounds nothing like I want it. It sounds a lot more like beach waves hitting a shore than a beverage that's sloshing around in a bottle. But what I ended up doing to make it work is I took that sound and I slowed it down, which made it so that it was a lot more deeper and it was a lot more bassy. And I did a little bit of EQing to be able to tweak it and make it sound exactly how I wanted it to, because I wanted it to sound almost echoey. I wanted it to feel a little bit more constrained as it's trapped in a little canister, a little bottle. So I added a little bit of a reverb to it, and this is what it sounded like after I did all of those changes. So if you can't find what you're looking for, go ahead and get the closest thing and just start playing with it and start manipulating it and stretching it. Because after you do all these different audio files, they will sound completely different. They will sound like completely different sound effects altogether. And you'll be amazed at how versatile and how much you can do with these simple tools of changing the speed and changing the pitch of your audio, as well as just doing some basic EQing. Every now and then you're gonna find a sound effect that's really close. It's like the right motion, it's like the right timing, everything is almost there, except that there's just not enough of it. It's not full, it's not rounded. This was a problem that I found all the time when I was filming the coffee commercial video. I might be able to find the right sound effect of something like a boat motor, or the sound effect of the skier hitting the water in a certain way, those splashes and things like that, but it just wasn't full, it wasn't rounded. It was like there wasn't enough of a splash. Or in the case of the coffee commercial, the sound effect of something spilling out and hitting the table, it was really good, it was really close, but at the same time, it just wasn't quite there. I wanted to have the feeling of quantity. I wanted to communicate that there were a lot of coffee beans that were being spilled out into one small space. So what I decided to do is I layered these sound effects on top of each other to make it sound like there's far more to this environment and far more to this sound than just a small little handful. Now it sounds like there's a much larger handful, or even a cupful. Not only that, but you can make it so the sound meets your timing a little bit better by layering things on top of each other. Sounds that are really short can sound a little bit longer if you just place them and you work on your timing to be able to make it work a little bit better for your scenario. Now, when looking up sound effects, you're not going to find everything that you want all the time. It's just not gonna happen. You're gonna find at some point where your needs are a little bit too specific. Like, sure, you might be able to get away with something like, oh, the sound effect of keys jingling, but what about those really subtle sound effects, or sound effects that you just can't quite put your finger on or know what they're called, like clay being mushed in your hands, or someone going on a slip and slide? If I try to find that in any audio library, I'm gonna come short, I just know it. Well, this is where you need to get a little bit creative, and you need to think outside the box, because you're not limited based off of the title of these sound effects. Who's to say that a boat can't sound like a car? Who's to say that sizzling bacon can't sound like rain? My point is, don't give up just because you can't find it on the first search result. And not only that, don't give up if you found something on your first search result and you're like, it's not very good, but it will do. No, get specific, get picky, and start manipulating it and think outside the box. Most of the sound effects that I use, they don't make sense, at least not based off of the title of them. So I'm gonna go ahead and play you guys the coffee commercial, but without any music, just the sound effects by themselves. And I'm gonna go ahead and leave in the titles of each of these sound effects, so you have an idea of what they're called, because they don't really make sense, at least not on first glance. But after doing all of the editing and thinking outside the box, you can really get away with a lot of stuff. So that gives you guys just a little bit more insight into my creative process and the things that go through my head when I'm trying to find the right sound effects for a video like this. And yes, it does take a lot of time and patience, but it's really worth it. Every time that I decide, hey, you know what, I'm tired, I don't feel like doing this, I regret it later. So be sure to take your time and really craft out your sound effects properly. But let's take a look at some of these comments down here. Simon Cote writes, I totally didn't know that Kubo was a stop motion movie using clay characters. Yeah, it's crazy. A couple of years ago when I first watched the movie, my sister showed it to me. She was like, yeah, take a look at this stop motion movie. And I just kept on telling my sister, this is not stop motion. There's no way. This is way too good. It's a really good movie. If you haven't seen it, you gotta check it out. You know, this is the challenge about these comments. I cannot pronounce any of these people's names. Umara writes, you have a great channel here, very informative and detailed. Keep up the great work. I appreciate that. Rumblebee writes, okay, before I actually read what Rumblebee wrote, I just want to congratulate you for coming up with one of the best usernames I've ever seen on YouTube. Learning and execution are two separate skills that need to be analyzed separately, but need to work harmoniously. Couldn't agree with you more, man. That's totally the point of the video. I see people who really care and are really passionate about things that they want to do, and they go out and they try to do it, but they can't actually execute it properly because they haven't spent the time of learning and practicing. So their execution isn't very good. These two concepts and these two separate skills really do need to work well together, but they are still two separate skills that you need to develop separately and so they can work best together. Jimlin5 says, me and my friends are starting a YouTube channel. and this video is really helpful. Thanks. Oh, I'm really glad I could help. There's all kinds of little hacks and things you can try to do you don't always have to pay for the fanciest and most expensive gear to get good results. And good luck with that YouTube channel. Hope it works out well for you. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell so you get those notifications. You know, do all that jazz. And I will see you next time. Take care.